Hello, good afternoon from the UK. It's an absolute honour, ma'am, to have you on the Positive Wellbeing Association platform. And thank you so much for accepting my invitation. And I'd like to welcome you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here today.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask about some general sort of questions about positive couple research. Yourself and your husband are in the same domain, and you do an absolutely magnificent job of, showing so much lovely cohesion in the way you conduct yourself. You do your research, and then obviously it's all evidence-based research. What do you feel, as a positive psychology practitioner, that you can bring to light from, if you can tell us a bit about your book as well as your life experiences? What kind of thriving couple relationship practices would you say come together in that context?
Sure. I guess I'd want to start with there's so much focus today in our culture on, the wedding rather than the marriage. So much emphasis on getting together rather than how to stay together and being happy together. So James and I, in our book that you mentioned, and Happy Together, we talk about ideas and research-based practices for couples, for individuals and couples, that they can practice in their life to have healthier relationships. And while the book's focused on romantic relationships, really any relationship. And basically, in essence, it's what you put into a relationship rather than, sitting around just waiting for happiness to come. Like we know in other aspects of our life, let's say in our career, you don't just get a job and then, magically catapult into the corner office. No, you work at it. You take training classes, you train your mind, and you learn new skills. And we feel this similarly in relationships. What are those healthy habits that you can practice? Things like savoring and cultivating positive emotions in order to create stronger, more thriving relationships.
Okay, that sounds amazing to see that actually, positive psychology advocates the two sort of key elements for building a positive relationship are savoring and obviously the matter of actually acquiring the skills and the attributes to really sort of build upon it. And I think it sort of leads us quite nicely to Barbara Fredrickson's building of positive emotions theory as well. That's a very sort of interesting sort of element that yourself and your husband being positive psychology researchers and actually putting so much time into positive relationships have actually come to the conclusion that actually these two things, cultivation of positive emotions and the actual sort of practice of savoring moments, is a key element. Thank you so much for that. Also, what would you say would be a good connection of positive relationship strengths with the PERMA model? So any sort of examples you can give from your book. Please do name your book, because you haven't named your book yet. We'd like to know what book should we all be reading.
Sure. So we co-authored a book called Happy Together, Using the Science of Positive Psychology to Build Love That Lasts. And you'll see it's science-based, as mentioned in the title, and building love that lasts, because we feel that love is an action verb. You need to work on it like you work on your body at the gym. So we like to talk about the notion of a relationship gym. What are those practices from positive psychology that we can do to make our relationships stronger and more flexible? And you mentioned PERMA. Yeah, Marty Seligman's brilliant theory. If you notice, the R is right in the middle. That's relationships. And relationships are extremely important to well-being, as Marty talks about from his work. And they may, in fact, be the most important factor to well-being. Chris Peterson said you could sum up positive psychology in 3 words: other people matter. And a lot of research shows that the relationships we cultivate with other people have an enormous effect on our well-being. So we can imagine when we're in a relationship, and specifically a romantic relationship, when things are going well, that's a great boost to our well-being. Unfortunately, when things aren't going as well as we'd like them to be, that can have a negative effect. So what are those strengths? You mentioned strengths. What strengths can we use? What individual strengths and strengths in our relationship can we use and leverage to build a healthier relationship? So one just very quick thing, James and I talk about the notion of strength based. What's the strength of mine and what's the strength of my partner's? In our personal example, I'm a very zestful person and he loves to learn. So what can we do with those two top strengths of ours to have an activity, a date, or an outing where we could exercise those strengths? So for us, one example, fun example, we rented scooters or Segways and we toured the historical part of our neighborhood. And I got to tell you, at the end of the day, my sense of adventure, whizzing around the streets of Philadelphia was really satisfied, and James's love of learning was peaked. Positive psychology research shows when we use our individual strengths, we experience greater well-being. And when we help facilitate the strength use of our partner, it leads to greater relational satisfaction as well. So it's a win-win situation for both people in the relationship.
Okay, I mean, that sounds absolutely amazing concept to know that actually, if you cultivate each other's strengths and collaborate together, that builds a better positive relationship between the two partners, and to actually cultivate the optimal level of thriving behaviors between couples. It's good to realize that you've got to realize each other's strengths. They may not be the same, but however, if you collaborate them together, you can actually accomplish a positive well-being. Thank you so much for that question. And also, ma'am, you haven't named, have named the book. Can you tell us a bit about the research about the book?
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, pop culture often focuses on just, the commercial aspects of falling in love and getting married. But the research shows it's actually healthy habits that lead to more sustainable and satisfying relationships. And in calling through positive psychology research, we found specifically 4 areas that were the most robust, correlated with happy relationships. So we go in detail about these topics, but in brief, the first one, as we mentioned, cultivating positive emotions. So in the beginning of a relationship, you experience a lot of positive emotions, but as the relationship, evolves, those positive emotions might not be as frequent. So what are those activities? What can we do, like in Barbara Fredrickson's work, to help build positive emotions throughout a relationship, not just in the fairy tale stage? The next area we talk about is the importance of passion. We all know how important passion is in our lives, but we talked about there's a healthy passion and there's a unhealthy passion. And this is based on the wonderful Bob Vallerand out of Canada, who was the former president of the Canadian Psychological Association and the International Positive Psychology Association. So we talked about how to build a healthy passion and avoid an obsessive passion where you're just consumed with your partner, because we found out that leads to burnout and breakup and just negative emotions. The next area we talked about is savouring, as we briefly mentioned. A lot of couples we spoke to when we were writing the book who were in happy relationships really took time to notice, acknowledge, and celebrate those small moments. Whereas those who were unhappy or broke up, unfortunately, one partner or both felt that their significant other didn't appreciate those small moments, but were always waiting for those big momentous occasions in life. And then finally, we talk about the strengths that I just mentioned. We focus on the VIA character strengths, where everybody, has strengths and they have them in different configurations, and finding out your top 5 strengths by going to www.via, character strengths, you can start practicing your individual strengths and helping to facilitate the strength use in your partner. So that's briefly the 4 main areas we talk about.
Okay, that's brilliant. It's we're running a bit short for time, but the research obviously advocates some really interesting 4 pivotal points that would actually build upon relationships for a positive relationship to occur. Just a quick sort of final question. Where do you see the future of positive psychology interventions regarding positive relationships leading us towards? How can we sort of make our future better towards positive well-being? What would you recommend for positive psychology practitioners out there?
I think if people put as much attention on their relationships in healthy ways as they do other aspects of their life, like I mentioned previously, at work, realizing healthy relationships, it's habits that lead to happiness, and they put in the work and practice every day, like they might on the job or at the gym, to get, better results when it comes to physical health, then they would experience more thriving relationships. I think there's this cultural myth that you just meet that special someone and they're your soulmate and you're going to live happily ever after. And I think that does a disservice. I think if more people talked about best practices and focused on what works and shared this knowledge and showing that, at the end of the day, relationships are hard, like other aspects of our life. But if we work on applying positive psychology practices like the things we just discussed, cultivating positive emotions, appreciating our partner, celebrating his or her strengths, and working at relationships, I think it's a much more realistic expectation and a better way to build a long-lasting, healthy, and sustainable relationship.
Thank you so much for the final thought. Those 4 key elements, obviously cultivating, savouring moments, building on your strengths, building positive relationships, and obviously to have identify your character strengths as well, and obviously practicing them. So repetition of all these things actually builds towards a positive well-being for positive relationships. Thank you so much, ma'am, on behalf of Positive Wellbeing Association, for participating in this interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having the opportunity. I really enjoyed our conversation and sharing the work on positive relationships with your audience.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.